Hi, I'm Nick Bolton, the founder of ICCS, and in this video, we're taking a look at I5, continuing the series of the seven-eyed model in coaching supervision. Now, I5 is the relationship between the supervisor and the supervisee. In particular, looking at what the unconscious patterns that might be emerging in that space can tell us about other parts of the system. So to be clear, when we're talking about I5, what we're not looking at is the contracting piece or the review piece or the how effective is this being piece and what else do you need from me? It's none of that stuff. I5 is not about looking at how we work together. I5 is about looking at what's happening between us that might shed light on the rest of the system. Now, sometimes this is known as parallel process, or at least parallel process is a significant piece of I5. And parallel process is simply, I say simply, it's rather complex in some ways, but it's the manifestation of energies and behaviors that are somewhere else in the system finding their way into the supervision space. So to give you some concrete examples of that, let's imagine a client who is under a lot of pressure at work to get results, and they're having a coaching journey with a coach who starts to feel that same pressure, like, wow, I've got to get results for this client. But in turn, that coach might come to the supervisor and bring that same energy to the supervision space. Like, hey, I need you to help me get results because that's what I'm paying you for. So then the supervisor finds themselves feeling a need to get results. And this might be something that's alien to the supervisor, who perhaps is more spacious, more humanistic in their approach, thinking, why am I feeling this pressure to get results? Well, at one level, the supervisor could manage their behavior. They could name it and say, hey, I find myself feeling this, and I want to become more present for you. But what that does is it fails to address the clues it offers for us to look further into the system. So rather than saying, let's manage it away, what we're beginning to say is, let's explore what this might be saying about the wider system. Where is this energy coming from? Is that something that's been noticed? Is it something that perhaps has been unconsciously adopted by the coach and is feeding its way here? Or is the coach aware of it and it's me that's taking it on board unconsciously that I can then feed back the pressure the coach is kind of bringing to the whole system? So once we start to investigate what's happening between us, we can shed light onto many more aspects of the coaching that's unfolding. Let's take another example. Perhaps the coach is working with a client who is very sensitive to certain issues. And as a result, the coach is avoiding it, treading on eggshells, trying to move around the topic. And that sense of carefulness or fearfulness finds its way into the supervision when the supervisor finds they're also treading on eggshells, also avoiding things, not wanting to say things that might trigger or upset the coach. It's neither effective for the supervision, nor is it effective for the coaching. And yet this energy of treading on eggshells, this energy of avoidance is finding its way into that supervision space. Now, again, the supervisor could think to themselves, I need to be more challenging. I need to stop avoiding. Or they could say, hey, I find myself avoiding. Where might that be coming from? Because it's unusual for me to do avoidance. So where might that avoidance be happening within the system? And the coach can then engage with, like, that's what I'm experiencing here, or this is what's happening over here. It allows us more information. So we're not simply noticing a behavior and then managing it away. We're noticing a behavior and surfacing it to say, what might this tell us about the supervision and the coaching in general? Other examples could be that the coach is finding themselves bored with the client. As a result, the supervisor finds themselves also bored. There's something's just not interesting about this. Something's not coming to life about this. And as the supervisor is listening, they find that to kind of get more and more distant from the process. Again, rather than saying, hold on, I should become more present. I should ask better questions. I should do this. I should do that. Instead, they say, I find myself becoming disinterested. How do you experience this process? How do you experience the coaching? How do you experience the system you're part of? By using this information, we can draw out much more information than simply managing it away or managing ourselves as supervisors. Now, of course, it's possible that you could start to see a parallel process everywhere. For instance, let's imagine as a human being, you are naturally a procrastinator and you're a supervisor, and the coach comes to you and they're also procrastinating, and turns out the client's also procrastinating, and you're thinking, whoa, this is parallel process. It might not be. It might be just that all three of you share a certain behavioral pattern of procrastination, which, let's be honest, is rather common. So we have to be careful not to assume that just because behavior seems to repeat itself, it's parallel process. What makes parallel process parallel is not that we share the same behavior, is that it's somehow alien to the space that's happened that we're in. Somehow it doesn't belong there. It's been, in a psychodynamic sense, displaced from one place and put into the supervision. That's the really critical thing with parallel process, is to notice what's unusual about the situation, not is what's usual. If it's usual, it's probably just your stuff. And at that point, it's not very helpful, other than perhaps to share strategies you have to overcome those sorts of things. Now, there are a lot of ways to think about parallel process, and we won't go into too much detail here, but certainly you can take a psychodynamic perspective and you can look at such things as displacement and projective identification and these sorts of unconscious emotional communications that can take place between people seemingly by magic. You find yourself behaving in a certain way that doesn't belong to you. That's a great clue that there might be something else in the system that needs to be looked at. We can also look in a more systemic sense and actually take a big step back and say, hey, let's take a deliberate, conscious look at the system to see what energies are percolating through that might find themselves here. So there are different ways of using I5, but the critical thing is to notice what is happening between us that sheds light onto the coaching that's taking place and the effectiveness of the coaching that's taking place. I hope that's been helpful. And in the next video, we'll take a look at I6, which is the supervisor's own internal processing of what's going on for them. Thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next video.